Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. You guys have given us a ton to unpack today with these patch 25.07 notes.
A treasure trove indeed.
So we're going to try to sift through all of it together and figure out what's really interesting and what you should actually care about, what's going to affect your games.
Yeah, these notes dropped April 1st, 2025, hit live servers on April 2nd.
Yeah, so we got a lot to cover here. And we're also dealing with some April Fool's stuff, which should be interesting.
Right, a lot of temporary changes to the non-ranked queues.
Yeah. Okay, so what are we looking at? We've got the April Fool's event, of course. We've got champion updates.
Big Yorick rework. LeBlanc visual update.
We got item changes, ARAM, Arena, the Clash schedule.
And the return of the Blue Essence Emporium.
Ah, yes, the Blue Essence Emporium.
Yeah.
Where we spend all of our hard-earned BE. Okay, so should we start with the April Fool's event?
Yeah, let's dive into the limited time Mayhem versus Merriment event.
Mayhem versus Merriment.
Yeah, basically Shaco versus Pengu Garen.
It's chaos versus wholesomeness.
Yeah.
Interesting. So what's happening on the Rift for this?
So Summoner's Rift is getting a bit of a makeover. The big change is the Party Drake.
Okay, the Party Drake. I'm intrigued.
If you secure the Party Drake soul, you get this interesting buff. You and nearby allies get 30% bonus movement speed.
That sounds fun already.
But the movement speed converts into AD and AP.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so the faster you move, the more damage you deal.
So you got to stick together as a team.
Exactly. It encourages grouping and coordinated movement.
That sounds super chaotic, some crazy team fights.
Oh, for sure.
And what about the Dragon Slayer buff from the Party Drake?
So when you take down a Party Drake, you get a party favor item. It just pops open. You get a random amount of gold.
Okay.
But the cool part is it gives you a skill point.
Wait, what?
Yeah, and all your minions get a cool disco aura.
So it's like a mini party. I love it. A free skill point, though. That's actually pretty huge.
Yeah, you can really swing some early skirmishes.
Yeah, for sure. And what about the terrain changes? I saw something about disco pads.
All right, so these disco pads appear in base and around the jungle. You step on them, and you get a burst of movement speed.
So like a speed boost.
Yeah, and there's a giant ducky disco ball in base. You can click it to channel for even more movement speed stacks.
That sounds absolutely wild. I can just imagine the chaos.
It's going to be mayhem.
And how is Shaco involved in all this?
Well, Shaco's doing his thing, leaving cat Shaco boxes around.
Oh, those things.
Yep. They spawn in lanes, both on Summoner's Rift and ARAM.
So you're just walking along and boom, cat box.
Exactly. You pick one up, you get a random cute effect. And if you get 10 of them, you get a minor party favor.
So there's an incentive to collect them.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Poor Pengu Garen is probably not too thrilled about all this.
Probably not. But speaking of, there's a free Pengu Garen skin available for everyone during the event.
Oh, nice. In all game modes.
Yep.
So you can spread that wholesomeness everywhere.
Exactly. And for ARAM, they're doing ARAM, but make it fast.
Okay, what does that even mean?
You get 200% Summoner Haste. Kappa Juice is dirt cheap, and you can buy as many as you want. And the Snowball gets a visual update.
So it's basically just chaos all the time.
Pretty much. Super fast-paced.
That sounds hilarious, but good thing this is all non-ranked.
Oh, yeah. All this April Fool's stuff is just for fun. Your ranked games are safe.
Good to know. And we can't forget about the April Fool skins.
Right. We got Urgot, the Clogfather, Pool Party Malphite, Grillmaster Braum, Glizzy Nafiri.
And of course, Cat in the Box Shaco.
Naturally.
Okay, let's move on to something a bit more permanent. The LeBlanc visual update.
Ah, yes. They went all out for this one. New models, animations, ability icons, VO, VFX, SFX, splash art.
So basically everything.
Everything. And all her skins got updated, too.
That's fantastic for LeBlanc players, but there's a price increase for some of her skins, right?
Yes. Prestigious LeBlanc is going from 520 RP to 750 RP. And Ravenborn LeBlanc from 975 to 1350.
So if you were thinking about getting those skins, you should have bought them before the patch.
Yeah. But the good news is they're releasing LeBlanc's new champion theme on the League YouTube channel.
Oh, nice. When's that coming out?
April 3rd.
Okay, cool. So moving on from the shiny new visuals, let's talk about the Demon's Hand event and those rare sigils.
Right. So there's been an issue with the rare sigils. Players haven't been getting them as often as intended.
Oh, really? Why is that?
It was an interaction with some of the hidden missions.
Ah, okay. So is it fixed now?
Yeah, they fixed it in this patch. They increased the mission progress rate by a lot, like 80% per minute of gameplay.
So now you should be swimming in rare sigils.
Hopefully.
Okay, cool. Let's talk about system changes. First up, Home Guard and Fountain adjustments.
So these are targeted at a specific playstyle we've been seeing in mid lane.
Mid laners recalling all the time.
Exactly. They buy symbiotic souls and then constantly back to heal and refill mana.
Yeah, I've seen that. It's really annoying to play against.
Right. So they're not nerfing symbiotic souls directly because it's still a good item on supports. They want to discourage those constant recalls.
Okay, makes sense. So what are they changing?
The max HP and MP you regen per second from the fountain is slightly lower now.
So those quick top-ups are less effective?
Yeah. But the regen rate for missing health and mana is actually higher, especially early game.
So if you're low, you heal up faster.
Exactly. It's more about punishing those small top-offs.
Okay, that makes sense. And home guard speed is also changing, right?
Yeah, the initial burst of speed when you first leave the fountain is lower now. Goes from 75% down to 65%.
But the scaling is the same, right?
Yeah, the scaling from 14 to 40 minutes is unchanged. So you still get that big speed boost later.
Okay, so just the initial burst is slower. Interesting.
It gives opponents a bit more time to react.
And there's also the lane swap detection change.
Right. They're making the detection area in mid lane smaller.
Why are they doing that?
So it doesn't incorrectly trigger if you're just fighting in the enemy jungle.
Like around the raptor pit.
Exactly.
Okay. Makes sense. All right, time for the champion updates. And there's a lot to cover here.
We have a lot of champions getting adjusted this patch.
So let's try to hit the highlights, starting with Brand. What's going on with him?
They're trying to make Brand jungle viable again.
Okay. How are they doing that?
They increased his passive damage against monsters and the exclusion damage cap, too.
So his clear should be faster now.
Yeah.
Hopefully. Okay. Next step, Darius. Looks like he's getting nerfed.
Yep. He's been a little too strong.
So what's happening?
Base armor down slightly. E cooldown up at all ranks.
So he's a bit squishier, and his hook is less reliable.
Yeah, they want to make him easier to punish, especially if he wastes his E early.
Okay. And Gwen, what's going on with her?
Gwen's getting some adjustments after her buffs last patch.
I remember she was pretty strong.
Yep. So they're reducing her Q damage at all ranks.
Right.
And tweaking her W resists scaling to shift some power to later.
So less early dominance, more late game scaling.
Right.
Okay. What about Ivern?
Ivern's getting a small buff to his early game. They increase the root duration on his Q at lower ranks.
So he can make more plays early on.
Exactly.
Yes.
And Lilia.
Lilia's E damage AP ratio is going down.
So a nerf.
Yeah, they overbuffed her last patch.
Okay. And Lulu. Finally some nerfs.
Huh, yeah. They're reducing her Q damage and increasing her W cooldown.
So she's less oppressive in lane.
Yep. And her W uptime is lower later.
All right. What about Naafiri?
They're toning down her early game dominance, especially in the jungle. So base health and armor are down.
Okay.
Her passive damage to monsters is down too, but her Q damage to minions is up. And her W cooldown at lower ranks is increased.
So they're hitting her jungle clear in early ganks.
Exactly. But they don't want to hurt her in mid too much.
Okay. Makes sense. What about Olaf?
Olaf's getting a quality of life change. His E-cast time now scales with attack speed.
So the more attack speed you have, the faster you can cast it.
Exactly. It should feel much smoother.
Nice. Okay. What about Shaco?
They're buffing AD Shaco specifically,
Yeah.
increasing the AD ratios on his passive and Q.
So he can actually burst people down now. Yeah. Make him a more viable assassin.
Interesting. What about Shen?
Shen's Q now applies its flat damage to structures.
Oh, so he can push towers better now.
Yep. Should be a decent buff for split pushing.
Cool. What about Singed?
Singed is getting some number changes to shift power back into his poison trail.
Okay. So what are they doing?
Increasing the AP ratio on his Q. Also, slightly increasing the cooldown on his passive and nerfing his ultimate stats a bit.
So more damage from poison, less from everything else.
Right.
What about Trundle?
Trundle's E is getting buffed. They're increasing the slow and decreasing the cooldown.
So his pillar is just better overall.
Yep. It should be more impactful now.
Okay. And Volibear.
Volibear's W and power damage now scales with bonus AD.
So AD Volibear is back on the menu?
Potentially. It's what they're aiming for.
Interesting. What about Xerath?
Xerath is getting a bunch of changes to reinforce his identity as an artillery mage.
So lots of number tweaks.
Yeah. Q AP ratio up.
Right.
W damage adjusted. E damage down. RAP ratio slightly up.
So basically buffing his poke and ultimate.
Exactly.
Okay. And Yone, he's getting a pretty big change, right?
Yeah. Two major changes. First, they removed the crit damage reduction on his passive.
So he crits harder now?
Yep. But they also removed the CC cleanse on his E return.
So he's more vulnerable if he gets CC'd while his E is active?
Exactly. Higher risk, higher reward.
Interesting. Okay, and lastly, we have the big Yorick rework.
Yeah, they did a lot with Yorick.
This is the one I'm most interested in.
Basically, they want to make him a better champion overall, especially in higher elo.
So how are they doing that?
Well, they buffed his early game a lot. He generates Glaives more consistently now. Even from minions, he doesn't last hit.
Oh, wow. That's a big deal.
Right. And his Q does more damage. His E applies an armor shred.
Okay.
And they changed his mist walkers. He can have more of them now.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, but their damage is lower, especially late game. They're more durable, though.
So more of a swarm than a few heavy hitters.
Exactly. And the Maiden's damage is lower late game, too.
Interesting. So overall, they're trying to make him more consistent and rewarding to play.
Yep. And they did some under-the-hood changes, too.
What does that mean?
Basically, they made it easier for them to balance him in the future.
Okay, that's good. Hopefully they won't have to constantly rework him now.
Hopefully.
All right, let's move on to item updates. What's happening with Catalyst of Aeons and Rod of Ages?
Both of them are getting more mana and a buff to their Eternity passive.
So they restore more mana when you take or deal damage.
Yep. Goes from 7% to 10%.
Okay. And Catalyst is also getting a build path change.
Yeah. It builds from 2 ruby crystals and a sapphire crystal now, plus 200 gold.
So the build path is smoother.
Right.
Okay. And Umbral Glaive is getting some changes too.
Yeah, they're buffing it overall. Lower cost, more AD.
Okay, that sounds good. But there's a catch, right?
Of course. The cooldown on its blackout passive is going way up. From 50 seconds to 90 seconds.
So you can't clear wards as often. Makes sense. Okay, let's talk about Aram.
So they're focusing on champions that haven't been touched in a while.
So lots of little adjustments.
Yep. Some targeted changes, some general balance tweaks.
All right, who's getting buff?
Ari, Bard, Draven, Evelyn, Lilia, Misfortune, Mordekaiser, Rakan, Rel, Renekton, Skarner, Warwick, and Ziri.
That's a lot of buffs.
It is.
And who's getting nerfed?
Just Soraka and Yumi.
Okay, so just a couple of nerfs this time.
Yep.
What about Q updates? What's happening there?
So they're rolling out Swift Play to all regions. It's replacing Quick Play.
So Quick Play is gone.
Yep, it's Swift Play now.
Okay. And they're bringing back normal draft.
Yes. So now you have a standard Summoner's Rift option for unranked.
Cool. I know some people have been asking for that.
Yeah. And there's a small timing change for normal draft in the OC1 shard.
All right. Let's move on to Arena. I hear there are a ton of changes.
So much stuff happening in Arena.
Okay, well, let's start with the general changes.
All right, so Combo Breaker now works on knock-ups and knockbacks. Ring of Fire no longer damages players in the Death Realm. And the end-of-game screen shows up to 5 augments now.
Okay, cool. Some quality of life improvements there. What about Guests of Honor? Who's showing up this time?
So in round 2, we have Mbessa, Katarina, Draven, Cassiopeia, and Alistair.
Okay, some interesting choices there. What do they do?
Well, Mbessa lets you choose to sacrifice early power for a guaranteed augment later. Katarina gives you a bunch of rerolls.
Okay.
Draven increases the chance of getting better stat anvils and gives bonus anvils for win streaks. Cassiopeia prevents you from buying boots, but you get a full item round instead. And Alistair can save you from elimination once per game.
Wow. Those are some pretty big effects.
Yeah, they can really change how you play the early game.
What about the round 8 Guests of Honor?
In round 8, we have LeBlanc and Sonya Zal.
Okay, and what do they do?
LeBlanc will periodically make everyone invisible for a short time, and Sonya Zal disables all revive mechanics for the rest of the round.
Some more chaos and disruption. Sounds fun.
Yep. And they also adjusted Elisa's cocoons.
How so?
It's harder to break out now, and cocoons in the Death Realm will return to the Living Realm after a short delay.
Okay. Makes sense. And it looks like there are a ton of augment changes, too.
Yeah, a lot of them.
Can we go over some of the highlights?
Sure. Omnisoul now correctly grants the Elder Dragon buff if you have Dragonheart with 4 or more souls. Infernal Conduit has a cooldown now. Clothesline, Dual Wield, Phenomenal Evil, Wisdom of Ages, from beginning to end all got adjusted.
Okay.
And for curse augments, Max Cursed Power, Dreadbringer, Doomsayer, Desecrator, Death Touch, and Dark Blessing all have some number tweaks.
So if you play Arena, you should definitely read the patch notes carefully.
For sure.
What about item adjustments in Arena? Anything noteworthy there?
Yeah, Dragonheart now has a max of 4 souls when you buy it, and
Right.
Hexbolt Companion's range is increased to 1200.
Okay. And I see there's a long list of bug fixes, too.
Yep, lots of bug fixes for augments, items, and champion interactions.
So hopefully Arena is less buggy now.
That's the goal.
All right, let's move on to Clash. What's the latest on the schedule?
So they're actually reversing those changes they made to Clash frequency.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're going back to the original plan of more tournaments throughout the year.
So more Clash for everyone.
Exactly. They've released the full 2025 schedule. We've got multiple Summoners Rift Cups, ARF Cup, MSI Clash, ARAM Cup, Worlds Clash, all with dates. And the December Summoners Rift Cup has been changed.
Okay. And what about the reward requirements? Are those changing too?
Yeah, they're going back to the original ones, since there are more tournaments now.
So it's easier to get trophies and orbs. Nice.
Yep.
Okay, let's talk about the return of the Blue Essence Emporium.
It's back from patch 25.07 to 25.09.
Awesome. So time to spend all that BE I've been saving.
Exactly. And there's a new title you can get, Emporium Enjoyer, for 250,000 BE.
Ooh, I might have to grind for that one.
And remember, this is the last Emporium until the end of the year, so spend wisely.
Good advice. And Jean and Vel'Koz have special BE prices, right?
Yeah, they do.
Because of their champion themes, right?
Exactly. Shin is 1234 BE, and Vel'Koz is 1618 BE.
Very clever.
Just a little Easter egg for the fans.
Okay. And what about that Quantum Galaxy Slayer Z banner?
So it's going to be up a little longer than planned because of the delay with the San Yuzal Mordekaiser skin.
Ah, okay. Makes sense.
Yeah.
And what's going on with the Prestige Battle Academia Kiana skin?
There's a bug where the icon border isn't being granted, but Riot said they'll fix it and give it to everyone who bought the skin later.
All right, good to know. Lastly, let's go over some of the general bug fixes and quality of life changes.
All right, so Singed Q no longer executes Tryndamere during his ult.
Oh, that was a weird one.
Yeah. And Gwen got some visual bug fixes,
Okay.
and Neferi's packmates should dash more reliably now.
Good. I hate it when they get stuck.
And of course, a bunch of other smaller bug fixes for champions and items.
Hopefully the game is more stable overall.
That's the plan.
And we can't forget the new skins coming out.
Right. We got Urgot the Clogfather, Pool Party Malphite, Pengu Garen, Grillmaster Braum, Glizzy Neferi, and Cat in the Box Shaco. All with chromas.
A very interesting collection of skins.
Indeed.
Okay, so that was patch 25.07. A lot to unpack there. We had the April Fool's event, champion updates, item changes, arena stuff, new queues, the Blue Essence Emporium, and more.
It's a big patch.
Yeah, it is. So what are your thoughts? What are you most excited about?
The Yorick rework looks really promising.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to try him out. And I'm curious to see how those Home Guard and Fountain changes affect the early game.
Yeah, me too.
Anyway, thanks for joining us for another deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
Make sure to check out the patch notes yourselves for all the details. And let us know what you think of the changes. We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.